The Discovery. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation window of Lunar Base Horizon, watching Earth float in the black expanse of space. The blue marble seemed peaceful from up here, but she knew better. 60 years of Galactic Council protection had turned humanity's homeworld into a carefully monitored cage. The quantum comm unit on her wrist chirped, displaying a message from her research partner, Dr. James Okonjo. Found something. Dig Site Delta. Come now. Sarah's heart raced as she made her way through the base's pristine white corridors. The Council's surveillance devices tracked her every move, standard procedure for primitive species research facilities. Their handlers claimed it was for safety. These days, fewer and fewer people believe that. Dig Site Delta was their least promising excavation, a narrow crack in the lunar surface that their sensors had barely registered. The Council's archaeological overseer had dismissed it as irrelevant. That alone had made Sarah interested. James stood at the entrance to the fissure, his dark face visible through his helmet's transparent front. Even through the comm system, she could hear the excitement in his voice. "You need to see this." They descended into the crack, their boots leaving clear prints in the undisturbed lunar dust. 100 meters down, the narrow passage opened into something impossible, a perfectly spherical chamber, its walls covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow in their helmet lights. "This isn't natural," Sarah whispered, running her scanner over the nearest wall. "And it's not Council technology either. These patterns, they're unlike anything in their database." James nodded, moving to the chamber's center where a simple pedestal rose from the floor. "That's not all. Watch this." He reached out and touched the pedestal's smooth surface. The chamber came alive. Lines of light raced through the geometric patterns, and a holographic display materialized above the pedestal. But instead of the Council's preferred blue holograms, this one shimmered in warm gold tones. "Is that?" Sarah's voice caught in her throat. "English," James confirmed. "Well, Proto-English. The language analysis dates it at roughly 15,000 years old." Sarah's mind reeled. According to official Council history, humans had barely mastered stone tools 15,000 years ago. Yet here was proof of advanced technology, hidden in the moon itself. The hologram shifted, displaying a series of images, star maps, technical diagrams, and what appeared to be a massive network of artificial structures spanning the solar system. But it was the text accompanying these images that made Sarah's blood run cold. "Emergency Protocol Alpha," she read aloud. "In the event of hostile external control of Sol system, activate planetary defense grid. Caution. Full activation will reveal presence of all dormant systems to observers." James gestured at the flowing symbols. "There's more. This facility is just one node in a vast network. Our ancestors built it all, Sarah. Not the Council, not some precursor race. Us, human beings. But why hide it? Why let their descendants forget everything?" Before James could answer, their comm units crackled with an incoming priority message. Sarah's stomach dropped as she recognized the sender code. "Council Overseer Cyril." "Doctors," the alien's artificially smooth voice purred. "Our sensors detect unauthorized access of restricted lunar sectors. Please remain in place. A security team is en route to assist you." Sarah and James shared a look. They both knew what assistance meant. The Council had been waiting for an excuse like this for years. "How long to download the data?" Sarah asked, already pulling backup power cells from her suit's storage compartments. James connected his research tablet to the pedestal. 10 minutes minimum. They'll be here in 5. Then we'll have to give them a proper welcome. Sarah moved to the chamber entrance, drawing the research tool she'd spent months smuggling past Council inspections piece by piece. It looked like a standard mineral scanner. It wasn't. As she braced herself in the narrow passage, Sarah thought about Earth floating above them, about the billions of humans living under the Council's protection, about the truth that had been hidden from them for thousands of years. "James," she called back, When this starts, trigger the emergency broadcast protocol. Every human on Earth, Mars, and the Belt needs to know what we found here." The sound of approaching vehicles echoed down the fissure. Sarah checked her weapon's charge and allowed herself a grim smile. The Council thought they had humanity safely contained, reduced to conducting minor research under strict supervision. They were about to learn how wrong they were. James's voice came over their private comm channel, thick with emotion. "Sarah, if what this data suggests is true, if we really built all this, why would we ever give it up? Why let them think we're primitive?" The first Council security drone appeared at the top of the fissure. Sarah's finger tightened on her trigger. "I don't know," she said, "but I think we're about to find out." High above them, unnoticed by the approaching Council forces, lines of ancient code began flowing through systems that had waited millennia to be awakened. Humanity had forgotten its legacy, but that legacy hadn't forgotten humanity. The real question was, were they ready for what awakening it would mean? Hidden truths. The Council security drones never stood a chance. Sarah's modified research tool sent out targeted electromagnetic pulses that dropped them one by one into the lunar dust. But she knew it wouldn't hold back the organic security teams for long. "James, status," she called over their private channel. 60% downloaded. "But Sarah, this is incredible. The defense network, it's not just weapons. It's everywhere. In the lunar regolith, in Earth's oceans, even in our own DNA." A warning light flashed on Sarah's heads-up display. More vehicles approaching, larger this time. "Council combat shuttles." "What do you mean in our DNA?" James's voice was filled with awe. "The protocol isn't just a weapon system. It's a heritage lock. Our ancestors encoded access keys into the human genome itself. That's why the Council keeps such tight control over human genetics research." The first combat shuttle appeared at the fissure entrance, disgorging armored figures. Their environmental suits were sleek, advanced, and completely vulnerable to the ancient security measures built into the chamber's walls. Sarah triggered the secondary defense protocols she'd discovered. Invisible fields of force flickered through the passage, holding the Council forces in place. Their weapons, products of the Council's superior technology, went dead in their hands. "They've been lying to us from the beginning," Sarah realized. "All those protective restrictions on human technological development were to prevent us from accidentally accessing our own legacy systems." James finished. "Sarah, these files, they're showing me something. A message encoded in the base pairs of every living human being. It's a memory." The Council forces struggled against the containment fields. Through their suits' transparent faceplates, Sarah could see their expressions of shock and growing fear. They'd never encountered human technology they couldn't overcome. "They still haven't," Sarah thought grimly. "This was here long before us." "Play it," she said. The chamber's holographic systems shifted, and a new figure appeared. A woman in clothing 15,000 years out of date, her face bearing the weight of an impossible decision. "To our descendants," the figure began, her words automatically translating from Proto-English. "If you're receiving this message, you've discovered one of our emergency protocols. I am Dr. Elena Martinez, Chief Administrator of the Sol System Defense Grid, and I am about to make a choice that will shape humanity's future." The message continued, each word hitting Sarah like a physical blow. 15,000 years ago, humanity hadn't been primitive. They'd been the guardians of this sector of space, using technology that made the Council's finest achievements look like children's toys. "The entity is coming," Elena's recording continued. "A consciousness vast enough to devour galaxies. We fought it across 3 spiral arms, but it's too strong. Our only hope is to hide, to make ourselves small, primitive, uninteresting, to wrap our worlds in technology that makes us seem younger than we are." James's voice shook. "The Council, they're not our overlords. They're our replacements, the ones who stepped into the guardian role after we deliberately regressed. More council forces were arriving above, but their weapons and systems failed the moment they came within range of the chamber. Sarah couldn't help but smile at their frustration. How long had they lorded their technological superiority over humanity? How long had they kept humans penned in their own solar system for their own protection? Download status, she asked. 90%. But Sarah, there's something else. The entity that forced us to hide. The records show it operates on predictable cycles. It's due to return. Soon. The recording of Elena Martinez flickered. The hardest part of this plan is knowing that our children, and their children for generations to come, will have to live as primitives. That they'll look up at the stars and feel small, never knowing their true heritage. But it's the only way to ensure humanity survives. A new alarm blared through the chamber. James swore softly. Multiple council dreadnoughts just appeared in orbit. Energy readings are off the scale. Let me guess. They're charging weapons. Yeah, but these readings. Sarah, I think they're going to try to crack the moon open. They'd rather destroy this facility than let us have it. Sarah looked at the hologram of Elena Martinez, at the fear and determination in her ancient ancestor's eyes. How much longer on the download? 98%. But even with this data, we're nowhere near ready to face the kind of firepower they're bringing to bear. The chamber's walls hummed as the council ships powered up their main guns. Sarah felt strangely calm. Maybe we don't have to be ready. Elena said they hid technologies throughout the system. In the oceans, in the lunar soil. Her eyes widened as understanding hit. In our DNA. James, they wouldn't have left us defenseless. Not completely. Check the files. Look for anything about genetic activation protocols. The chamber shook as the first council shots struck the lunar surface. But James was already moving, his fingers flying over the holographic controls. Found it. But Sarah, if we trigger this, there's no going back. Every dormant system in the solar system will wake up. Every human being will remember. Good. Sarah grabbed his arm. The council needs to learn. You don't corner a species that once guarded galaxies. James hesitated for just a moment, then entered the final command. Above them, the council dreadnoughts prepared to fire again, their weapons charged to moon-cracking levels. They never got the chance. Throughout the solar system, ancient systems began to wake. In the lunar regolith, in Earth's oceans, in the asteroid belt, and in the DNA of every human being, 15,000 years of enforced sleep came to an end. Humanity was about to remember who they really were. The council was about to learn why they should have left well enough alone. And somewhere in the depths of space, an entity that fed on galaxies stirred, sensing the reactivation of its ancient enemies. Awakening. The change began as a whisper in the blood of every human being in the solar system. On Earth, Mars, and throughout the belt, 8 billion people simultaneously stopped what they were doing as ancient memories cascaded through their minds. In the lunar chamber, Sarah gasped as knowledge flooded her consciousness. She remembered things she'd never experienced, piloting starships that could cross galaxies, wielding technologies that could reshape planets, standing watch over hundreds of civilizations as they grew and evolved. They're burning, James said, his voice tight with pain. The council ships, their systems are just burning out. Through the chamber's holographic displays, Sarah watched council dreadnoughts drift powerless in lunar orbit. The same advanced technology they used to dominate humanity for decades was now being systematically dismantled by defense systems older than their entire civilization. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "All this time, they thought they were containing us. They were actually living inside our security system." The hologram of Elena Martinez flickered back to life, but her expression was different now, harder, more urgent. Full protocol activation detected. If you're seeing this message, then the containment has failed. The entity cannot be far behind. You'll need to remember everything quickly. Sarah's newly awakened memories provided context. The entity wasn't just a threat. It was the threat. A cosmic horror that consumed civilizations whole, breaking down their knowledge and technology to add to its own vast consciousness. Council ships attempting emergency FTL jumps, James reported. But they're not going anywhere. The defense grid is holding them in place. A new voice crackled over their comms. Council Overseer Cyril, his artificial calm finally cracking. What have you done? Do you realize what you've awakened? We know exactly what we've awakened, Sarah replied, memories of strategic command protocols settling into her mind. The question is, did you know what you were really looking at all these years? Did the council understand they were playing warden to their own protectors? Silence answered her. Then, the entity comes. You've doomed us all. No, James said, his voice carrying the weight of 15,000 years of hidden knowledge. We've saved you. The council's technology couldn't stop it. That's why you never detected its approach. But our ancestors fought it before. They found its weaknesses. Sarah accessed the chamber's deep scanners, systems infinitely more advanced than anything the council possessed. The results confirmed her worst fears. James is right. The entity's already here, at the edge of the Orc cloud. The council's sensors were too primitive to detect it. Through the holographic display, they watched as more ancient systems activated throughout the solar system. Orbital platforms emerged from dimensional pockets where time moved differently. Defense satellites grew from microscopic seeds planted in asteroid cores. And beneath the surface of every human settlement, dormant technologies sparked to life. Sarah, James called, his hands moving across the control pedestal. I'm getting signals from other chambers, all across the system. People are remembering. But it's causing chaos. We need to coordinate them. She nodded, understanding flooding her enhanced mind. The genetic keys aren't just awakening memories. They're reactivating our ancestors' neural architecture. We're becoming what we once were. And what exactly was that? Cyril demanded, still listening in. Sarah smiled as she accessed the chamber's full capabilities, feeling neural links connecting her to defense systems spanning the entire solar system. We were the ones who stood in the dark and kept the monsters at bay. We were the guardians who gave up everything to protect younger races like yours from threats you couldn't even perceive. New alarms blared through the chamber. The entity had detected the awakening systems and was accelerating its approach. In lunar orbit, the council ships hung powerless, their crews watching in terror as something vast and dark began to eclipse distant stars. You have two choices, Overseer, Sarah said, ancient authority ringing in her voice. You can stay here, trapped and helpless, while we fight the thing your people never even knew was hunting you. Or you can accept our help, the help we've been trying to give you for 15,000 years. Silence stretched between worlds. Finally, Cyril spoke. The council will never accept this. We cannot simply surrender our authority to. Look at your sensors, James interrupted. Look at what's coming. Your authority means nothing to it. Your technology means nothing to it. But we fought it before. We can fight it again. More alarms. The entity was accelerating faster now, its vast form distorting space itself as it approached. Sarah felt the weight of command settling onto her shoulders, not just the memories of it, but the real, immediate responsibility for billions of lives. Last chance, Overseer. Are you going to let ancient pride kill your people? Around the solar system, humanity was remembering its true purpose. Police officers recalled lives as system defenders. Teachers remembered millennia spent educating young civilizations. Factory workers found themselves accessing knowledge of technologies that could reshape reality itself. The entity grew larger in their displays, a darkness deeper than space itself. Make your choice, Sarah said, but make it fast, because ready or not, the real war is about to begin. Guardians rise. The entity's approach warped space itself, turning the stars into smears of light. In lunar orbit, the council ships hung motionless, caught between ancient human defense systems and an approaching cosmic horror. Overseer, Sarah called again. "We're out of time." Exeral's response came slowly, each word seeming to cause him physical pain. "The Council requests assistance." Sarah's fingers flew across the chamber's control surfaces, activating protocols that had waited millennia to be used. "James, start emergency upload to all Council ships. Give them enough access to see what's really coming." Around the solar system, humanity's reawakening was reaching its peak. The genetic keys had unlocked not just memories, but physical changes. Neural networks dormant for 15,000 years sparked to life, connecting human minds to ancient defense systems and to each other. "Connection established," James reported, feeding entity detection data to Council ships now. Through the chamber's displays, Sarah watched as the Council crews finally saw the true nature of their enemy. The entity wasn't just big, it was vast beyond comprehension, a living void that consumed everything in its path. Knowledge, technology, life itself, all became part of its ever-growing consciousness. "By the first light," Xeral whispered. How did we never see it?" "Your civilization evolved after we went into hiding," Sarah explained, ancient knowledge flowing through her enhanced mind. "Your technology developed along different lines. You can't detect it because you're looking for the wrong things." The entity's outer tendrils reached the Orc cloud, immediately beginning to break down and absorb the ancient chunks of ice and rock. Sarah felt a familiar fear rising, not from her own memories, but from the genetic memory of her ancestors who had fought this battle before. "James, status of the defense grid. Online and responding." "But Sarah, these readings. The entity's stronger than it was in our ancestors' time. It's been feeding, growing." Of course it had. For 15,000 years, it had roamed unchecked while humanity hid. How many civilizations had it consumed? How many species had been absorbed into its vast consciousness while their protectors slept? A new signal caught her attention. Multiple FTL signatures detecting. Council reinforcements. "No," James said, wonder in his voice. "These are different. Sarah, they're human." Through the chamber sensors, Sarah watched as ships began appearing around the solar system. But these weren't like anything the Council had ever seen. They were organic, almost alive, their hulls grown rather than built. Ships that had hidden in deep space for 15,000 years, waiting for the signal to return. "The sleeper fleet," she breathed. They actually survived. The entity paused its advance, perhaps sensing the awakening of its ancient enemy. Its vast form rippled, tendrils of dark energy probing toward the solar system. "All Council personnel." Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "What you're about to see, try to stay calm." She nodded to James, who activated the final sequence. Throughout the solar system, hidden structures began to emerge. Massive orbital platforms phased into normal space, their surfaces covered in technology that made the Council's finest achievements look primitive. Defense satellites the size of small moons emerged from quantum storage, their weapons already charging. But the real shock came from Earth itself. The planet's oceans began to glow as ancient machines activated beneath their surfaces. In orbit, the Council's observation stations watched in awe as the planet's magnetic field transformed into something else entirely, a shield that encompassed the entire solar system. "Impossible," Xeral whispered. "Your world. All this time." "Earth isn't just our home," James said, pride in his voice. "It's the command center for this entire sector's defense network. Why do you think our ancestors chose to hide there?" The entity struck without warning, a tendril of pure darkness lashing out at Mars. But it never reached the planet. The defense grid activated, and reality itself seemed to twist. The entity's attack didn't just stop. It ceased to exist, erased from space-time by technologies designed specifically to fight it. Sarah felt the collective consciousness of humanity surging through the neural network, 8 billion minds working in concert for the first time in 15,000 years. Knowledge flowed between them: how to fight, how to defend, how to survive against a being that consumed entire galaxies. All ships, All stations, she broadcast. Battle Protocol Omega, just like we practiced 15,000 years ago. The sleeper fleet moved into formation, their organic hulls pulsing with energy that didn't show up on Council sensors. The defense platforms aligned themselves, creating overlapping fields of protection. And beneath the Earth's oceans, weapons powerful enough to reshape reality itself prepared to fire. Council vessels, Sarah called. Fall back to Earth orbit. What's about to happen? Your ships aren't designed to withstand it. The entity's full form finally came into view, blotting out the stars themselves. Its surface rippled with the accumulated knowledge and technology of countless consumed civilizations. Sarah felt its vast consciousness pressing against reality, trying to break through the defenses that had once driven it back. "You know what the worst part is," she said to no one in particular. "It doesn't even understand what it does. It's just hunger given form, consumption without purpose." The entity launched its full attack, darkness sweeping toward the solar system like a tide of oblivion. But humanity was ready. After 15,000 years of sleep, the Guardians had awakened. And this time, they weren't planning to hide. Legacy of Light. The battle for the solar system unfolded on scales the Council had never imagined possible. The entity's attacks warped space-time itself, but humanity's defenses held firm. Each assault was met with countermeasures developed over eons of previous conflicts. In the lunar chamber, Sarah and James coordinated humanity's response through the neural network. 8 billion minds worked as one, remembering and implementing strategies that had been buried in their genes for 15,000 years. Energy spike. James called out. "It's trying to breach the barrier through quantum tunneling." Sarah was already responding, directing a squadron of sleeper ships to the threatened sector. The organic vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their living hulls generating fields that made quantum mechanics itself reject the entity's presence. "Fascinating," Xyril said from his powerless ship. "Your vessels, they don't just fight it. They make reality itself fight it. That's why we had to hide," Sarah explained, even as she coordinated another defense pattern. "This level of technology, it changes the universe around it. If we'd stayed active, we would have drawn it straight to every developing civilization in the galaxy." The entity recoiled from another failed attack, its vast form rippling with frustrated hunger. But Sarah noticed something different in its movements now. Hesitation. For the first time in 15,000 years, it was facing prey that could truly fight back. "James," she called. "Access the deep archives. Find the luminous protocol." His eyes widened as genetic memory provided context. "Sarah, are you sure? Even our ancestors only theorized about it. It was never tested. We don't have a choice. Look at the readings. Conventional defenses are holding it back, but they're not stopping it. We need to end this. Now." Through the neural network, Sarah felt the collective consciousness of humanity considering her plan. In an instant, 8 billion minds analyzed it, refined it, and reached consensus. Throughout the solar system, the ancient defense systems began to reconfigure themselves. "Council ships," she broadcast, "fall back to Earth immediately. What we're about to attempt. We've never done this before." The entity sensed the change in its prey's behavior. Its attacks intensified, darkness lashing against humanity's defenses with renewed fury. But it was too late. The trap was already set. "All systems aligned," James reported. "Quantum matrices are stable." "Sarah, this is going to change everything." Again. She nodded, feeling the weight of yet another world-changing decision. Better than letting it consume everything. "Ready?" "Ready. But what if we're wrong? What if this makes it stronger?" Sarah looked at the holographic display of Elena Martinez, still watching them from 15,000 years in the past. "Then we'll find another way. That's what we do. That's what we've always done." Through the neural network, she felt humanity's collective agreement. They had hidden once to protect the galaxy. They wouldn't hide again. "Initiating luminous protocol," Sarah announced. All systems, execute. Reality trembled. The defense platforms, the sleeper ships, even Earth's oceanic generators, all focused their power into a single point. Space itself began to fold, creating a lens that focused not energy, but consciousness. The entity reacted instantly, trying to withdraw. But humanity's defenses held it in place as the luminous protocol reached full power. In an instant that stretched for eternity, 8 billion human minds focused through technology that could reshape reality itself. They didn't try to destroy the entity. They did something far more profound. They made it understand. 15,000 years of human knowledge, culture, art, and experience poured into the cosmic horror's vast consciousness. Not as food to be consumed, but as truth to be comprehended. The entity experienced love, hope, fear, triumph. Everything that made humanity what it was. For the first time in its existence, it understood what it had been destroying. The entity's form began to change, darkness giving way to something else. Not light, exactly, but possibility. The accumulated knowledge of countless consumed civilizations remained, but now it was guided by something new. Comprehension. As the transformation completed, Sarah felt a presence touch her mind. Vast and alien, but no longer hungry. The entity had become something new, something that could finally understand the value of what it had been destroying. By the first light, Xyril whispered, "You didn't destroy it. You enlightened it." "That's what guardians do," James said softly. "We protect, we preserve, and sometimes we teach." Through the neural network, Sarah felt humanity's collective relief and triumph. But she also felt their determination. The entity's transformation was just the beginning. There were other threats out there, other challenges to face. "Overseer Xyril," she called, "I believe it's time we discussed a new arrangement between humanity and the Council, one based on truth rather than fear." The entity, now transformed, moved through the solar system not as a predator, but as something else. Within its vast consciousness, the knowledge of countless civilizations began to stir, no longer just consumed, but finally truly understood. Humanity had awakened, not just to its power, but to its purpose. They were guardians not because of their strength, but because they understood that true power lay not in destruction, but in transformation. As Sarah looked out at the changed entity, at the stunned council ships, and at the newly awakened defenses of her people, she smiled. 15,000 years ago, humanity had chosen to sleep so that others might live. Now they were awake, and they would never stop watching over the galaxy again.